Chapter 3. Obituary Notice for Joseph Reed. The Tribune e-Journal, March 18, 2025. FBI researcher Joseph Reed, 47, died on Monday, March 16th of a self-inflicted wounds. The deceased's wife, Ashley Reed, reported that her husband had been depressed ever since he was passed over for a promotion at the Bureau 3 months prior to his suicide. She had urged him to seek professional counseling, but claims her husband refused. Mr. Reed is survived by his wife and their 16-year-old daughter, Kayla Marie Reed. Chapter 3. Kayla stared down at the red splotches in the tub. No cleaner or formula she'd attempted in the last 10 days had been able to erase them, and her mother was in no shape to do anything about it. Kayla didn't particularly want to clean her father's blood from the tub either. It felt disloyal somehow, like wiping away the last bit of him. But how could she use the tub or shower again with such a hideous reminder in front of her? She couldn't shower at Amber's house forever. This was their only bathroom. The stains had collected around the drain, probably pooling there when the blood-stained water had drained out. The faucet dripped, and her eyes locked onto the falling quicksilver drops. Counting the drips one by one after the other, she drifted farther away. ... into her memory. The people continue to move towards the city. The person behind her puts his hand on her shoulder. He speaks to her, and she hears his words in her head. His words are louder and clearer than the rumble of conversation she hears from the other people. "Let's go," he says. ... Mrs. Reed steps into the bathroom, and Kayla startled back to the present. Why was she having these waking visions? What did they mean? Though normally she would have already left for work, Mrs. Reed still wore her bathrobe, and her eyes were smudged with old eye makeup she hadn't removed since yesterday. "Aren't you late?" Kayla asked. "They'll get by without me for a little while longer," she answered, staring in the mirror, seeming mesmerized by her own disheveled reflection. In Kayla's opinion, the maternity unit where her mother worked as a nurse would probably function better without her, at least lately. Mrs. Reed turned on the faucet and began washing her hands, but the washing motion soon climbed up to her wrists. Her movements quickened, and her entire body grew tense and agitated. Grabbing a nail brush from the sink, she scrubbed the barcode tattoo on her wrist. Each stroke became increasingly violent. Kayla pushed in front of her and shut the tap. "That's not going to get the tattoo off," she yelled. This crazy washing ritual had become a daily event. It unnerved Kayla. She needed her mother to stay strong for her, not to turn into the twisted bundle of nerves she'd become. "The barcode killed your father," her mother said dully. "I want it off of me." Kayla wanted to shake her mother. How many times was she going to repeat that awful statement without explaining? "Why do you keep saying that?" she asked. "Tell me what you mean." "It's better if you don't know," her mother answered. "How can it be better?" "It is. Believe me, it is." "I can't talk to you," Kayla shouted. The overload of frustration was suddenly unbearable. She couldn't even bear to stand next to her mother. How had she become so pathetic? Kayla banged the door down as she stormed into the hallway. At the stair landing, she stood, breathing heavily with anger and frustration. It was just the two of them now. Her father had always been that parent she could talk to, but he'd abandoned them. For some inconceivable reason of his own, he'd just decided to go. For good. Now it felt as if her mother was abandoning her too. Air. She needed air. It was as if her father had breathed it all up with his last dying breaths. She raced down the stairs and directly out the front door. She didn't stop until she reached the titanium wall that separated all the front yards from the sidewalk. She leaned heavily on it as she watched life go by, people walking, cars passing. Next door, Gene sat on his steps in a t-shirt and cut-off shorts. He tossed a small ball to his brown and white terrier, then turned to Kayla and waved. As his dog raced after the ball, Gene got up and joined Kayla by the gate, standing on his side of the front yard. "Everything okay?" he asked, with his eye on the dog. "I guess," she said, dismayed that her voice shook. She didn't really know him, not well enough to tell him her problems. He shared the house with 2 other guys about his age, and they all worked down at the post office, which was now actually a Global One office. The United States Postal Service had gone bankrupt about 10 years ago. People agreed that its financial collapse was mostly due to the internet. No one needed stamps anymore, and people usually used a faster private carrier to get the items they ordered off the net. It was no help that terrorist groups occasionally sent poisons, disease bacteria, and explosives through the mail. That was when Global One, the international affiliation of corporations and individual billionaires, came to the rescue. They offered the government the funding to convert all postal buildings into government offices, with the provision that Global One would operate them. Many of the employees still felt loyal to Global One for saving their jobs, though the younger employees, like Gene and his friends, complained that Global One worked them hard and kept cutting their vacation time, health benefits, and overtime pay. "How's your job?" she asked, mostly to fill the awkward silence that had arisen between them. Something about him always made her a little uncomfortable. It might have been the way he blinked his eyes just a little too often. "I'm training for the 2 machine," he replied. His tone implied that this wasn't necessarily good news. One of the most recent duties of postal workers was to administer the barcode tattoo. Certain employees received special training on how to work the small laser machine that imprinted the tattoo. "How do you like it?" He leaned closer to her, and she detected cigarettes on his breath. The smell repelled her. Almost no one smoked anymore, not in America. Ever since tobacco had been banned, the big tobacco companies had moved to Asia, where people continued to die of lung cancer by the millions. "I hate it," he said. "The tattoo is evil." Her heart raced. Did he know something? Gene stretched out his arm and displayed his barcode. "I hope there's nothing too awful in there, because I got one. Had to, or be fired." Before he could say more, his terrier, Ball and Jaws, pawed at his pant leg. "Cut it out," he scolded, shaking the dog loose. The dog dropped the ball at his feet. Gene threw it back to the stoop, and the dog raced after it. "You crazy dog," he shouted, following the dog back to his stoop without even saying goodbye to Kayla. He's definitely strange, she thought, watching him stand by his front door and pull out a pack of cigarettes labeled in Chinese writing. But strange or not, maybe he would learn something that he could help her to figure out what was really contained in those formidable black strokes of the barcode. Her mother appeared at the front door. She dressed in her white nurse's jumpsuit. Her chin-length hair was still unbrushed and knotty, and her eye makeup was still smudged. But at least she'd gotten out of her robe. "I'd like to talk to you," she said. Kayla joined her at the door, and they walked in together. They sat side by side on the living room couch. "I know I haven't really been there for you since your dad died," her mother admitted. Kayla's hopes rose. Had her mother managed to grab hold of her emotions? Could she finally offer her daughter some support? "You must understand," her mother went on. "This is complicated. I was the one who convinced Dad to get the barcode, and I was so wrong." She hung her head and tears welled. "I can't cope with what I did to him. To us, I killed him. I let it kill. Please, tell me," Kayla pleaded. "Why do you think it killed him? How did it?" Looking up again, her mother wiped her glistening eyes. "Just before he died, I woke up in the middle of the night and he wasn't in bed. I found him at the computer. He didn't realize I was there at first, but I watched him race through hundreds of barcodes and the files that went with him. He didn't have clearance for those files. He researched facts on places and things, not people, but somehow he'd gotten in." What was he looking for? Kayla felt she had to find out. "I don't know, but he stopped at one particular code profile and began to read it. He only got to read it for a few seconds before the screen went black. Some security blocker must have kicked in." "Did you ask what he was doing?" Mrs. Reed nodded, but he wouldn't talk about it. "We had a big fight over it. We were still angry and not speaking the day he cut. I need to lie down." She stood up unsteadily. "If the hospital calls, tell them I'll be there soon." Kayla trailed to the bottom of the stairs. "Don't walk away," she begged as her mother went up. "Tell me, why do you think the barcode killed him?" No reply came, just the sound of the bedroom door closing. Kayla stopped at her locker for books and found a piece of peppermint gum taped to it. She knew who had put it there, and it amazed her that a person she hardly knew at all had seen her pain. She glanced around to see if Mufumbi was near, but he wasn't. Amber appeared at her side and smiled the too bright smile she always wore lately. "How are you doing today?" she asked. "Not bad." "Not bad is good, right?" As they walked down the hall, Amber pulled some papers from her oversized silver bag. "These are for you," she said, handing them to Kayla. Kayla peered down at them, not understanding. She shot Amber a quizzical look. "They're applications for your barcode," Amber said. "I knew you wouldn't get them on your own. Your birthday is in 3 weeks. You have to file now. You can thank me now or thank me later. Either way, you'll thank me." Kayla thrust the papers back at Amber. "Thanks, but no thanks. I'm not getting it." Not getting it, Amber shouted incredulously. You can be as paranoid and suspicious as you like about it, but you have to realize there's nothing you can do about it too. Nothing. For one thing, they don't give out any other kind of license anymore. No license. That can't be true. They have to give another form of license other than the one that's in a barcode, Kayla argued. There's no law that says you have to get a barcode. Are you telling me that every single person who drives a car has a barcode tattoo? Yes. Well, I don't know that for sure, but every driver I know has one. Good luck trying to get your hands on a license without it, Amber huffed. You'll be like some kind of mutant freak. How are you going to pay for this stuff? I'll get an e-card. Amber scoffed with a snort. Yeah, like somebody will give you an e-card to a 17-year-old. Plus, it's such a higher level of difficulty to use one anymore. Salespeople get all banged out if you try. My grandmother tried to use hers the other day, and it took so long the other customers practically ran us out of the store. She shoved the application papers back at Kayla. Take these, you'll need them. Thanks, but I don't want them, Kayla insisted, folding her arms and refusing to accept the applications. My neighbor works for the post office. He told me that something was weird about the barcode. People are trying to take their tattoos off. Which one of these guys told you? Jean. That guy's a first-level flake, Amber said, rolling her eyes. You would listen to him? I know he's odd, but he's trained to work the barcode machine. He's got access to classified information. I bet he's lying, Amber said. He's just trying to make himself look more important than he is. As they rounded a corner, Kayla saw Mufambi standing with a group of other seniors. His back was turned and he didn't notice her. Amber pulled Kayla abruptly into a doorway. If you don't get coded, you're going to wind up like... She pointed at Mufambi and his friends. Like them. What's wrong with them? Listen, I know you haven't really been paying attention to anything these last couple of weeks, and I completely understand. But how could you have missed them? I talked to Mufambi Taylor once. Amber's face twisted in an expression of surprised disapproval. Well, all I know about him is that he's a superbrain. I guess he's okay. He aced that Jeopardy thing and all. I have no idea how he got mixed up with those others. Kayla checked out Mufambi's friends. They were all seniors, too. She knew who some of them were, but had never really spoken to any of them. Allison Miner was one of those kids always hanging around in the science lab. Blonde hair frizzled around her round face as if it were electrified by excessive brain waves. She always wore baggy clothes. Kayla assumed it was to hide her weight. Nedra Harris's short, bright red hair was cut down to a 1/4 inch. It looked good on her because she was so slim and had such a delicate-featured face. A silver ring pierced her right eyebrow, and she wore her angry attitude as though it was a matter of style. The short, heavy-set guy with the dyed neon orange hair was August Sanchez. He never said much in class, so Kayla didn't have much sense of what he was about. He was always dressed in khaki clothing that made her think of military uniforms. She knew he was a member of the Techno Club, which brought equipment into the classrooms. Then Kayla focused on the one student she had never seen before. Her eyes widened as she surveyed his golden brown eyes, thick brown hair, and high cheekbones. He was some exotic mix of ethnicities that she couldn't place. He smiled when he spoke to Nedra, and Kayla felt a sudden desperate desire to have him smile like that at her. He's out of this sphere, isn't he? Amber noted. Total final level, Kayla agreed. Where did he come from? Don't know. His name is Ezekiel something. I just got here 3 weeks ago. When he showed up, this little clique sprung up around him. He's cute, but I wouldn't go near him. He's involved with the same loser's deal as the rest of them. What deal is that? Kayla asked. They're involved with some kind of campaign to get rid of the barcode tattoos, Amber told her. In fact, I think he's the head loser. He was the one who got them all going about it in the first place. Now Kayla was completely interested. She'd have to find out more about Ezekiel.